Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to speak on Bill C-51, the latest omnibus bill from this government. And I have to say it is a bit ironic that we're here debating an omnibus bill, given the fact that when the Liberals were in opposition, they made so much noise and such a fuss about omnibus bills introduced by the previous Conservative government. The Prime Minister and the Liberal platform called omnibus bills undemocratic, and the Prime Minister pledged that a Liberal government would undo the practice of introducing omnibus bills. But I guess, like so many promises made by the Prime Minister during the last election, this is just another broken promise in a string of broken promises from the Prime Minister, and really illustrates that the Prime Minister's platform, real change, wasn't worth the paper that it was written on. This bill, as an omnibus bill, contains a number of different sections and parts that are unrelated, and given the fact that it contains a number of different sections that are unrelated, it then comes as no surprise that there are parts of Bill C-51 that I strongly support, and there are other parts of Bill C-51 that I have real concerns with. Maybe, Madam Speaker, I'll start with some of the positives. One aspect of Bill C-51 that I strongly support is the removal of unconstitutional sections of the criminal code. Canadians should be able to expect that the criminal code accurately reflects the state of the law. And yet, for Canadians to make that common sense assumption, they would be wrong, Madam Speaker. They would be wrong because the criminal code contains dozens and dozens of sections that have been found to be unconstitutional. The consequences of leaving sections in the criminal code that are unconstitutional can be very, very serious. And that was most recently illustrated last year when Travis Vader's conviction of 2 counts of second-degree murder of Lyle and Marie McCann was vacated after the trial judge applied a section of the criminal code that had been found to be unconstitutional 26 years earlier, all the way back in 1990. And yet, there was the section in black and white in the criminal code purporting to represent the law on its face, Madam Speaker. The McCann family, Lyle and Marie McCann, who were murdered, resided in St. Albert, and the McCann family, members of the McCann family, live in my community of St. Albert. And I can tell you that that case really did have a profound impact on our community. And that was further strengthened the impact of the case after the family waited 6 years for justice. And at the moment that it seemed that justice had been finally achieved, we saw the injustice of having those convictions, those 2 convictions of 2 counts of second-degree murder, vacated. What happened to the McCann family should never have happened. It was completely preventable, and it is why in December of 2016, I joined Brett McCann, the son of Lyle and Marie McCann, at a press conference to call on this government, to call on the Minister of Justice to introduce legislation to repeal unconstitutional sections of a criminal code, often referred to as zombie laws. And so, to that end, I am pleased that Bill C-51 does or will remove sections of the criminal code that have been found to be unconstitutional by appellate courts. I'm also pleased that the government introduced Bill C-39, which would remove sections of the Criminal Code that have been found to be unconstitutional by the Supreme Court of Canada. But I must say I'm very disappointed with the lack of progress that the government has made in the passage of Bill C-39. Bill C-39 was introduced by the Minister of Justice on March 8th of 2017. Nearly a year later, absolutely no legislative progress has been made. Indeed, Bill C-39 remains stuck at first reading. Bill C-39 is straightforward legislation, it isn't controversial, and it could be passed easily. And yet the minister continues to drag her feet. I have to say that I'm baffled, and the McCann family is baffled and frustrated about the failure of this government to move Bill C-39 forward so that unconstitutional sections, as determined by the Supreme Court, can be removed from the Criminal Code, including the section that was wrongfully applied in the Vader case. The inaction from this minister and from this government increases the likelihood that something like what happened to the McCann family can happen again, and in the event that it does, as a result of this government's inaction, this government will bear partial responsibility. So I urge the government to move forward with C-39 in addition to C-51. Now, one other positive aspect about Bill C-51 is the fact that the government has finally backed down from the removal of Section 176 from the Criminal Code. One of the parts of Bill C-51 is, again, to remove unconstitutional sections, as well as sections of the Criminal Code that, in the opinion of the government, are redundant or obsolete. Section 176 of the Criminal Code makes it a criminal offense to obstruct or threaten a religious official or to disrupt a religious service or ceremony. Section 176, simply put, isn't unconstitutional. It's never been challenged in court, never been found by any court to be unconstitutional. It isn't obsolete. Indeed, a number of individuals have been successfully prosecuted under Section 176, and it isn't redundant inasmuch as it is the only section of the Criminal Code that expressly protects the rights and freedoms of Canadians to practice their religion without fear or intimidation. A freedom that, by the way, Madam Speaker, isn't just any freedom. When we're talking about freedom of religion, we're talking about a fundamental freedom guaranteed under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And so I'm glad that this government listened to the official opposition, and more importantly, listened to thousands and thousands of Canadians who signed a petition, who wrote letters, who wrote emails, who made phone calls to MPs, to the government to say, keep Section 176 in the Criminal Code. Now, Bill C-51 will remove another section of the Criminal Code that I believe shouldn't be removed, and that is Section 49. Section 49 makes it an offense to attack or harm the head of state, Her Majesty the Queen. The government has not been able to provide any real meaningful rationale as to why Section 49 is going to be removed. They haven't been able to provide a rationale in debate. They haven't been able to provide a rationale at committee. And I have to say, Madam Speaker, that it couldn't come at a worse time, because this marks the 65th anniversary this year that Queen Elizabeth was ascended to the throne. And so it really is, it just makes no sense why this government seems intent on removing Section 49 from the Criminal Code. Now, Perhaps the most substantive part of Bill C-51 deals with amendments to the criminal code related to sexual assault laws in Canada. And, Madam Speaker, there are a number of parts that Bill C-51 would amend in terms of sexual assault provisions of the code. A number of the changes in Bill C-51 would clean up the criminal code in terms of codifying certain Supreme Court decisions, including the J.A. decision and the Awanchuk decision of the Supreme Court. I fully support the parts of Bill C-51 that clean up the criminal code with